Hello and welcome to episode 87 of our Conversations to Connect, Let's Get Real, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi O'Neill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. Our conversation to connect today is with Lynn Whitbeck, joining us from Lopez Island, Washington. Welcome, Lynn.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here with you, Cindy.
Oh, I am too. I'm so looking forward to learning and discussing your three secrets to close more sales with ease and joy. And we all need those little inside scoop, opportunities and lessons to be able to help us on our journey as entrepreneurs, right?
We definitely do. I mean, often say that I'm the poster child of taking the long road around to travel a short distance. And if I knew now, or knew then what I know now, it would have been a much shorter path.
And that's why we have these kind of conversations so we can support each other and we don't have to do things the hard way, right? We can learn vicariously through others. So,
Absolutely.
before we dive into this rich conversation, I want to take a moment to introduce Lynn to our exceptional connectors who may not already know her. So, Lynn is the queen of strategic sales. Business owners hire her to ignite winning sales because most fail to create consistent, repeatable, and scalable growth. So, Lynn helps sell with intent for maximum impact, influence, and income. Bottom line, sales, love it or leave it. You won't survive without it, right? So Lynn is the founder and CEO. I have Petite to Queen, but you're strategic sales now, right?
Yeah,
You've
so Petite
changed.
Queen is still the master company, but I went through a major rebrand this last fall, and so Strategic Sales Queen is my DBA. That's the website, everything's been moved.
The
Yeah.
latest and greatest information.
Yeah.
So Amazon best-selling author, speaker, and host of Claim Your Career Crown and Get More Clients shows. She has been seen in USA Today, HuffPost, Chicago Tribune, and more. When she's not working with her clients, Lynn loves visiting national parks, cooking, playing Pokemon Go, and she likes cats, I learned as well. So, welcome, Lynn. Before we get going, please share a bit more, a little bit more about your journey as we kick off our discussion, three secrets to close more sales with ease and joy.
I've been selling for a really long time. So it's just been my thing ever since I was a Girl Scout and I started selling cookies, right? But selling is for me, it's about service and it's about helping people. And when you approach sales with that mindset, I mean, it really changes everything because then you're there to really make a difference with the people you serve, the businesses that you serve, to provide solutions and make their life a little better.
So, being in the Girl Scouts and selling Girl Scout cookies, I love that, going back and learning more about you and your heart. And was that a turning point for you, or were there other milestones that really helped cement that mindset?
Well, being a Girl Scout, it is a lot about being of service. And I stayed in Girl Scouts throughout high school. I ended up being a camp counselor, all those types of things. But I think the piece about Girl Scouts that was so interesting to me early on is that we had the year I became a Girl Scout, moving from brownies to Girl Scouts where I could sell cookies,
Right?
there was this really special cookie badge. It was huge. And you had to sell a truckload of cookies to get that cookie badge. And, you know, the the story behind that is that, that very first day I went out with my very best friend, out we were with our little red wagon, honestly, my little red radial flyer wagon, and I'm pulling it along the sidewalk with cookies, like the Leaning Tower cookies, going door to door. And I discovered, some challenges. A, hauling those cookies in my wagon wasn't that easy. They flipped over, that type of thing. Two, my friend Judy was so shy and introverted, she would not leave the wagon at the sidewalk. And three, not everybody was home or not everybody bought. So at the end of the day, there I am thinking, how am I going to sell all these cookies? I really wanted that cookie badge. And so I'm telling this to my parents, and my dad just said, Lynn, where do people buy their cookies? And that's like a first lesson. It's like, instead of projecting how we think we should sell or what we should be doing, what does the client want? And where do they hang out? Where am I going to meet them? Well, it was the grocery store. And that very next day, that's what we did. We set up shop at the grocery store. And my friend Judy stayed in the back. She is at the table. She took the cash. She gave him the cookies. And I was out front, bringing them into the table. And we did that every day. So we essentially created a consistent and repeatable process. And at the end of the day, we had sold a truckload of cookies, and we won that cookie badge that we
Wow.
that we wanted. And I learned from that a number of different things. Perception is really important. I mean, this early on, I didn't recognize it for what it was, but later in sales, when it was that you can't project. And I see this all the time in conversations I have, that people are projecting what they think their clients want, or they assume that this is why they're asking that question. And they don't know. And that's one of the most important things as this in sales, you have to be a detective. You have to keep asking questions. You can't make an assumption as to why they're asking you about something, or why they haven't replied to your email or your phone call, you know? So you have to stop projecting and really get inside the thinking of your ideal clients. So that was one lesson learned. The other lesson was that if you really want to achieve your goals, growing your business, serving and helping more people, well, you better have a plan to make that happen. Shooting it from the hip isn't really a plan. And having a plan that's consistent and repeatable and essentially scalable. If I got a whole bunch of other girls in the troop to do the same thing, the whole troop would have won that cookie badge, right? So there's elements of that, looking back, that I see. And, the other thing was that, not if someone didn't buy from me, it didn't mean they didn't like me. Didn't mean they didn't like Girl Scouts. It just,
Right.
wasn't, they didn't
Hmm.
want any cookies, and
You
that's
didn't take it
okay.
personally. You
And
didn't take it personally, right?
yeah, yeah, that's the other thing about sales. And you have to keep in mind that not everybody is ready to buy right away. Some people will never purchase from you because they're just not your ideal clients. But they can still build a relationship with you, get to know you. They can provide you with a platform like we're doing right now on your show. They can provide you with the opportunity to meet more people. They can become a promoter, right? And so there's a lot of different ways that they can become a strategic partner, right? And yet they may never buy from you. And that relationship, though, can still provide real value for both of you. And that's really getting back to that sales is this point of being really curious about other people, really wanting to get to know them and build a relationship. And when you do that, you build that like, know, and trust factor. And that is when you get more business. It's pretty simple.
I love that. And I do have to, before we move forward, I was a Girl Scout also, and I went all the way up to cadets, and I ended up being an adult leader for my daughter when she was in Daisies. So it's a great organization, and there's a lot of great lessons to be learned in sales and relationships and commitment. And it's funny, different, we all have different personalities, different things motivate us. I remember I think it's junior high, they had a little pendant. And if you showed up for this extracurricular and you had perfect attendance, then you got this little, garnet charm. And so I made sure I was there every time. So, whatever it is to motivate you, whether with your, in an organization, that's a great thing to be able to use to motivate um, your Girl Scout group, your team. So I love what you say about being a detective because being a detective is so important. You're looking for the clues, right? You're
Yeah.
asking good questions. You're not imagining anything. As a detective, you're really looking at hard facts. So I love the analogies of being curious also. And part of that is leaning into it and asking good questions and not being, it's not about interrogating, right, Lynn?
No, it's never about integrity. Sometimes you feel like, oh, somebody's just asking you just bang, bang, bang. But it's actually finding common ground and
Yeah,
finding things that you go, oh, well, like we were before we were talking, and I know that you love to garden. And so it's a really natural conversation. Like if I could ask you more about what types of things are you do you love roses? Do you like your perennials? Do you have specific perennials that you like? I mean, and discover that maybe you love peonies, but to love
right.
peonies, we start talking. I mean, that's the thing. You find common ground through these questions, and you can also find things that you're really interested, like, oh, I didn't know that you could grow um hibiscus plants here. Well, you really can't, come on, it's too cold in the winter,
Right.
but you probably could actually bring them in and overwinter them potentially, right? I mean, you never know, but we end up having this conversation and you're curious about the other person and you're drawing them out. And the other key thing about that is that when you hear something that's interesting, that's intriguing, or it's raises a question again, you say, huh, Cyndi, I'm really curious about that. Tell me more. Tell me more about your garden.
I love that you say that, Lynn, because it's so important because we can ask questions, but it's the heart. It's not asking questions like a battering ram, to interrogate them, like we were saying. It's really your heart that you want to get to know somebody. You want to learn more about them. You want to find out what makes them tick. You want to find out what things you have in common that you can really be able to have a wonderful conversation about. So I want to go back to your comment about how so many business owners struggle with consistency. And you mentioned that a lot of times, it's because they're not creating repeatable and scalable, options and plans and strategies. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I think that's kind of the nuts and bolts of sales, right?
Well, it really is. And one of the things is that, especially today, people will think, oh, well, I just need yet another blog post, yet another social media campaign, yet another new lead magnet. And in actual fact, you don't need to create more content. You probably have all the content you need already. The key thing is it focused on your ideal client, what they want, need, or lack, why it matters to them, what's keeping them up late at night, what's causing them a lot of stress? And so they can what? What's the dream? What's the goal? What's the big initiative they're trying to achieve? And when you transform your language into your ideal client's language, now you're really connecting with them because obviously they're your ideal clients. They're the people that you want to be connecting with. And they're going to be more attracted to your messaging because they go, oh, that's me. That sounds like me. And that's really important. And then you use that all the way through your sales process. That's creating something that's consistent and repeatable because now instead of constantly chasing your tail, you have actually developed a really strong voice of the client, your ideal client, their love language. And you build that out of the reviews and the testimonials you receive, anyone that you've worked with in the past. And if you don't have that review or testimonial, you ask them, can we get on a 15-minute Zoom? And you ask questions so that you can get that arc, so you can find out where were they at before, what were they struggling with? What was the catalyst that made them decide they had to make a change or they need to find a solution? How did they meet you? Why did they decide to hire you? What was their experience like working with you? What were those initial results? And what have been the long-term results? And when you have that, now you've got the entire story arc and you've got to get it from more than one perspective, right? But you pull in at least seven, so you find seven past clients or existing clients. And if you're just starting out brand new, find somebody who is doing what you want to be doing and look at theirs. Okay. Look at their testimonials, look at their reviews. So that's another way that you can pull that in. You can also do interviews to try to find this information out. But that voice of the client, this is a living and breathing, literally document it's going to grow and change over time because we grow and change. We add new tools to our toolkit. A few years ago, nobody knew about AI. Now it's everywhere, right? You add more tools to your toolkit, new things that you're doing, whatever it happens to be, right? But we all emerge and grow and change. And so that voice of the client, your clients, what they bought from you last year may not be what they need anymore. But now there's a new gap and they need something different. So leaning into that allows you to really connect with them authentically in the things that they recognize that they actually want and need. And those are the outcomes, the results, the big dream that they are going for. And you're speaking their love language.
That is such an important and beautiful piece that's often missing in sales. A lot of people jump right into sales. They have a wonderful product, they believe in it, they like it, they think everybody else is going to like it. But pausing, taking time to inquire, to ask of your prospective clients. It could even be family and friends, right? You're
Yeah,
just, hey, I'm doing a survey. Can you help me out? And just different personality types, different individuals. I've done that in the past and it's been very helpful because that way you're not projecting,
yeah,
right? You're using information you're getting from your clients. And if you do enough of those, then you're really getting a very nice scope of who's out there, what their needs are, and what motivates them. You can learn a
yeah.
lot of keywords as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're literally using the correct language that's going to attract your ideal clients.
Right.
And then you
That
can
famous.
look through the things that you've already created, your assets, and make a few tweaks so they're in alignment with that, so that they're going to more deeply resonate with your ideal clients.
It's interesting. It's really like each individual, although let's say we're all speaking English, they're speaking a different language.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to speak the language of our prospective clients.
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, so Lynn, you talk about making sales joyful, right? That's something you're passionate about. So for those who feel resistant or discomfort, what's one mindset shift that you can offer that can change everything?
So I want you to do an exercise. I want you to write down what lights you up when you help people. How, what are some of the results that you've seen, the outcomes that you've seen from when you've helped people? How does that make you feel? Um, what are you proud of that you've done when you've helped a client, a customer? And now what you've done is you've actually created this very powerful value statement vault. And this is a vault that whenever you're feeling that self-doubt or, you know, um, yeah, I just don't want to ask for the sale. I don't feel comfortable. You go back to, but this is how I help people. This is how I change their lives. This is how I change, for me, how I change their business. Um, and that's incredibly valuable and powerful. And I want to help and serve them. So you change where you're approaching this from. I don't ever sell to anybody. I am helping and serving them. It's a very different approach. And I never pitch to people. I invite. I hate it when people pitch at you. I mean, it's just exhausting and it's just icky, right? So instead, when we're really leaning into that place of true service and value, we're still going to collect a monetary exchange for this, for our services, but we're doing it from a place of real worthy intent. We truly desire to help and serve our clients and make a difference. And whether for me, it's their business, their life, um, their systems, how they're working or connecting with their family, whatever it is you do, and what your product or service does. Um, and when you have that, it's a place that you can go when you're feeling like, oh gosh, I just got a rejection on a Friday afternoon. And it's like, yeah, but this is why I do this. It's because when I was able to help Gail, and there's Kathy on the call right now, right? I felt so good. And I saw how much it helped them and how much they grew as a result and what it's done for them now. Wow. So one person said no. It's okay. They just no for now. I'll be ready to hit the ground running on Monday morning.
Right. I love that. It reminds me of just a word picture I have of like a big tree, and it's let's call it an apple tree, and there's all kinds of low-hanging fruit. And when people get into sales, they have fruit that's just literally fallen into their hands, and they're like, "Wow, that was easy." And then, you've got the fruit way up high that's not quite ripened, or the birds get to it, or whatever. But there's all these different we need to realize that sometimes the low-hanging fruit is somebody else that planted the seed in talking to that person, but they didn't follow up, right? And so you're the beneficiary of that. And so we need to learn that because we need to be able to follow through on things that we've planted seeds on so that, we can get the benefit of it, number one. And also just keep that whole scenario in perspective that there's people who are ready to buy, and it doesn't matter what you say or do, they're going to buy. And then there's people that doesn't matter what you say or do, they're not going to buy. And it's just that whole continuum. It's so intriguing. And it is timing and also I love your statement about creating the value statement involved and really getting clear on what lights you
Yeah.
up because that's
Yeah.
contagious, right?
Yeah. And when you do that, you're not ever selling to someone, you're serving and helping them and you're making a difference. I mean, back in the day when I sold printing, I still made a difference because they didn't have to think about that project again. It was
Right.
completely handled. It was off their plate. And so that was a huge service to those
Mhm.
marketing directors and, et cetera. It was one thing they didn't have to think about.
Years ago, I heard someone say sales is an act of love. And I was like,
Yeah.
really? Hmm. But over the years, I've come to feel, and I can, sense from what you're saying, you concur. It really is showing people that you care. It's taking the time. It's not just a transaction. It's not
Yeah.
just, I want your money or buy from me. It's really being of service to people. It's listening, it's being generous. It's, educating them, it's being your word. There's so much wrapped up into the world of sales, and a lot of people have such a negative perspective of it. But really, it is a service that is being offered, and those who have the other people really feel that sense of love or service, they benefit from it. Okay, so leads me to you mentioned that clients are drawn to what's in it for them, right? That's an important aspect of sales. You always
Yeah.
want to come from that perspective. What's in it for them, not for you? So,
Yeah.
how can someone quickly shift their messaging to truly capture attention of their prospective clients?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things, using that voice of the client example, where are they at now? What's going on? What's the pain they're in, the solution they're seeking, the challenge they're having, what's keeping them up at late at night. But where do they want to be? People purchase where they want to go. They purchase the outcome, the results that they desire. And there's emotions that are wrapped up around that. And it's very important to identify the emotions that are wrapped up in it. And I mean the most buttoned down banker B2B sale, they are still an emotional creature. Human beings are emotional creatures. And if you can tap into the emotional motivation, people do purchase on their emotions first and they rationalize it later.
Mhm.
And
For
so
sure.
it's really important to understand their emotions that are wrapped up around that piece, and it could be anything from, you're working with a, a, a college specialist for placement, and you want the very best for your child. You want them to have a really great education. And because, you want them to be able to get further ahead in their career and in their life, have more, yeah, even tangible things than you've been able to have or afford. And so there's emotions tied up in that, right? And there's
Yeah.
really strong emotions tied up in that. Some people can get caught up in the emotions of prestige, like, oh, they want their child to go to an Ivy League school or this or that. And the job of the college counselor is to tie into that emotions, right? And but at the same time doing their job and doing asking the right questions, because if they're really looking for a really high quality education that's going to get their child the um have them in a really great environment where they can be successful in college, as this is the scenario we're running, right? Well, that may not be at an Ivy League school. That may be at a much smaller school that's going to be far less financially burdensome on the family, right? But it's getting that emotional tie-in of what really matters. And if the most important thing to them is the prestige, well, you're not going to get them, talk them out of spending $100,000 a year, right? Even if it's not the best environment for the child to be successful. Um, and so, but if they're more concerned about their child having a great college experience, getting a really good education, and being able to thrive and be able to use that to leapfrog forward, well, that's a different conversation. That's a different emotion and a different motivation. So, understanding that so that you can steer, and guide your clients in the right direction and help and serve them. That's important. I mean, that's just one example that I don't know
Right.
why I pulled that out of my head, but I did.
Well, but it's a great example of ego because if you have in this the case of the story that you just shared, if you have a parent whose ego is attached to the student being in a, Ivy League high prestigious school, whether it's because the grandparents and the parent went to that college or whatever, then they're tied to that. But if they're willing to look at it from the perspective of their child and their gifts and talents of the child and the needs of the child, then you get a very different result. So that's a really great point because it brings up the motives.
Yeah.
You have to be able to identify what the motives are. If somebody's purchasing something for their husband, like for Gail, she offers really quality products um, from Amway, and is somebody buying it for somebody else? Or are they buying it for themselves? You need to be able to discern what the needs are and what what the goal is for that person
Yeah.
because sometimes you can't get around their own agenda, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's a really good example. We've got her right here. And
That's
when I
right.
worked with Gail, it was like I wanted really high quality product, which I wasn't concerned about that with what Gail had had. But my thing
Hmm.
was that I wanted something that was be easier for my mother, who's 89, to swallow these pills. And so
Nice.
Gail was great about this is what you want and this is why. And, and it was, and they've been great. My mom's been thrilled because before she had something that was essentially it was like trying to take a horse pill or something. It was just, impossible. Now she has this great solution. She happily takes her vitamins and minerals every day, and she gets the health benefit from that, right? So
Beautiful.
that's the thing, when you really get into what's happening for people and what's guiding them, then you're able to direct them to the right product or service, and about what they really need.
Right. I love that. That's a beautiful story and beautiful example. So, can you walk us through what a simple, effective sales blueprint looks like for someone who might feel overwhelmed or unsure, like where to start? They buy into our conversation and that sales is an act of service, an act of love, and all of that. But how can we really break this down so someone could understand a usable framework and steps to follow?
Yeah, so I use what I call the Crown Sales Blueprint, and it starts with thinking like your client. You absolutely have to get a firm understanding of your client thinking and the voice of the client. This is going to guide your entire sales process always from everything. It is the foundational cornerstone of successful sales. And this creates that consistent and repeatable and scalable sales process. And once you have this, this is something you can, to scale, you bring in new salespeople, but this is something you literally, they've got this map, this blueprint, so they can be successful right out of the gate. So understanding your client thinking because they are the people who make the decision to buy. You don't. And it's still a human being who pushes the buy button on a computer or in person, um, wherever you're meeting them at. And so that's the first thing. And understanding that your client thinking, their emotions, their motivations, and really diving into that voice of the client is crucial. The second piece of that is creating a repeatable and consistent process. So there's a lot of different ways, but I'm going to give you one example. So we've all heard about funnels. Well, if it's a lead magnet that speaks to that gap about where your ideal client is right now, where they're at with either the pain or the solution they're seeking, what's keeping them up late at night, and where they're going to get to, you know, then this is the 5 steps to, you know, do go from here to here type of thing. Then you have a funnel that's attracting your ideal clients. And then what's the best way that you're delivering that? And there's a lot of different ways. So obviously you can deliver it through socials, you can deliver it as your lead magnet at an end of a podcast. You can use it as when you're speaking, it's something that people can opt into, right? So there's different ways that people opt into this funnel. And you don't need 6 different funnels. I mean, if you have 6 completely different product lines, sure. Okay. But starting out, you really want one solid lead magnet that's going to perform really well for you. And then how can you leverage that? And you can leverage it everywhere. It's the lead thing on your websites or for people to opt in. You've got it out on socials. You've got it, when you're doing podcasts, instead of sending people to your website, you send them to the lead magnet. Please send them to the lead magnet. When you're out meeting people, it could be even the QR code on your business card on the back side of it so they can get that lead magnet. And so that's process. The purpose of that is to move someone into your email list. And because your email list always is a much stronger engagement. Normally, it's a minimum of 24%, and it's often much higher. Social media at best is 3% and often less than 1% with Facebook because you're at the mercy of somebody's algorithms unless you're throwing money at it. Whereas your email list, people have chosen to opt in and to be on your email list. So you move them from the lead magnet, you welcome them, remind them why they're there, what they're going to get from being in your community, you welcome them, and you delight them by giving them some bonuses so that it's like, wow, okay, I want to be here. I want to be on this email list. And then you email them on a regular basis. So when you're doing this, you're creating a consistent, repeatable process. And because you're warming people up, because they may not be ready to buy immediately, but at some point they go, you know what, I need help. And this is who I've been following, I've been tracking, and I'm going to go ahead and book a call, or I'm going to buy this product or this course or whatever it happens to be that you offer. So that is a really key way. And every big business does email marketing. I don't care if it's Sur La Table, if it's, you were talking earlier about Amway products, whatever it is, all these different businesses, no matter how big or how small, are marketing to their email list. But you want to market to that in a way that delivers value so that it matters to your ideal clients, things that keep them engaged. And that, once again, that's creating that repeatable, consistent process. And so, and with that, the next one is O, being originally authentic. So, um, I don't talk about pitching ever because I hate the word and I don't pitch, right? But I may talk to my ideal clients in my email list about how they can invite, their prospects to work with them, right? Very different terminology, right? But that's the way I would call it. And so I know that I personally, always include story, some type of story that relates to something so that they can capture the metaphor or the analogy really quickly. Oh, okay. Oh, I get that. So one of the things is that you do what I call infotaining communication. And that ongoing communication, it keeps people engaged with you. You reveal things about yourself, like, Cyndi, I love to garden. I just planted, a whole row of strawberries and I can't wait to see them come, see the fruit this summer, whatever it happens to be. Or I was out there pruning my raspberry canes and I'm excited to see all the new shoots coming. So whatever it happens to be, you're also revealing a little bit about yourself so they get to know you a little better. And I'm not talking about TMI. I'm just things that they feel like they're more connected, like they know you. And you're providing them with things they can actually use in their business. You're not giving away the farm, but you can tell them, like, I went over how you could do the voice of the client. I talked about how you could do it. Yeah. So
Right.
I do a lot of DIY, but that doesn't mean that people want to do it all themselves. You know, so there's just like not everybody, sure, you can pay a landscaper to come and do all your gardening, but for some, maybe that's a solution. But for others, there's the pride and the joy of actually digging in the dirt yourself and seeing the fruits of your labor. So that's the thing. You want to make sure that you're keeping them engaged. So that's being originally authentic to yourself and who you are and the value you're providing. And then the next one is to have that worthy intent. You're truly desiring to help and serve people. So you offer products and services that make sense. And you could, all right, so I'm going to use Kathy. So she has her wonderful tallow products. And you could say the reason that this tallow product works so well on your skin is because it's your skin is your largest organ, and this is absorbing into it, and it's completely natural. And so your skin is literally accepting it as a nutrient back into your system. And how that is serving you, right? So she's speaking from the heart, but she's speaking of the value. And she's also promoting maybe a specific product, maybe a face cream that week. And she's put together a selection of wonderful um, products that are both, scented and with the ingredients that she's using and how she's manufacturing them so that people feel like, wow, I didn't realize that. I hadn't thought about the fact that my skin is my biggest organ, and whatever I put on it goes right into my bloodstream,
Right.
right? And so now that makes them thinking like, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give that a try. I've been on her mailing list. I've been following her. So you're also giving them the opportunity with worthy intent to engage and to become a customer, become a client. And then the last thing is that nurture process. So you're nurturing people all the way through the sales process. And after they become a client, you're still nurturing them. So it's like Gail was kind enough to remind me that they were having a big sale. I, of course, I had no internet that day, Gail. Our whole internet, all the islands went out. I don't know if you saw that on the news, but we literally had no internet. And that's a whole nother story. It just bizarrely happened. It makes me think of those commercials about the generators for your house. I really gotta get one of those generators. Anyway, but what happens is that you're still reminding people about things that because new products emerge, new services you've discovered over time, like there's things that you can use AI for that you can offer a training on how you can create your voice of the client using AI, right? There's all kinds of things that you can do. So you've got to keep moving that forward and nurturing that client and also nurturing them with who do they know who would like to have the same experience that they've had working with you and your amazing products and services so that you can get those warm referrals and not only additional business potentially from them, but new business.
I love the way you wrapped a bow around all of your different blueprint options that you offer and the great examples of being able to really, speak to the different products and services and be able to, like, for Kathy, it's not only reminding people that your skin's your largest organ, but a lot of times, traditional products that we purchase at the grocery store don't have good ingredients. And so there's so many, the education piece is what I'm focusing on. So sales is about educating people.
Yeah, to a
And
certain
when I
extent, it
learned
is.
that, it made a big difference. What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no, no, no. I really have, I love your philosophy and I've aligned with it myself in the different businesses that I've been involved in. had to develop a philosophy for myself that really my job is to educate people on what I have, the benefits of it. And when they're ready, they'll if we have a good relationship, if I've built have been worthy of their trust, then in many cases they'll come back to me and I'll even ask for the business. Sometimes people will say, I'm not able to take advantage of mailbox power now, but when I am, I'll consider talking to you about it. And I say, thank you. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me that you'd come back. And so I kind of reiterate it or state it myself. I can't tell you how many times people have years later come back and said, okay, I'm ready now, Cyndi. I've had a lot of people that I've talked to about mailbox power, but you gave me such great information. You always followed up with me, and I'm ready to go forward now.
Yeah. And that's absolutely the key is the follow-up. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times, I mean, I'm going to use a different example that's like MLN Legal Shield. And I talked to somebody about Legal Shield. I was like, oh, wow, this sounds like it could be really a great thing. And they send me a link and they never follow up. I mean, I think I think I've met with at least four different people over the last several years. And I actually now have this thing. Well, I wonder if anyone's ever going to follow up. And even the people that I really connected with, and I'm going like, yeah, but I'm busy. Okay. I'm busy. You're busy. We're all busy. Okay. And I know that busy is the new stupid and all that, but the point is that we got pretty full lives. We're managing a lot of different things, and it just gets on the list for me. And it's like now it's almost become this little thing. It's like, okay, someday somebody's going to actually follow up with me about this and follow up several times because and then I'll buy, right? And that's the thing when you don't follow up, what happens is that you've actually created a scenario where somebody was interested and but not ready, or life got in the way. They had a power outage, who knows what it is. And but if you don't follow up, the next person who comes along, you've primed the pump and then they do follow up. Guess who's going to get the sale?
That's right.
I can guarantee you it's the person who follows up.
That's
80%
right.
of the sales go to the 20% of the people who follow up. And that is, I don't remember if it was Harvard Business Review or whom, but did a study on this. But it was very reliable source. I can't lay my fingertips on right now, but it's just the truth because most people are not ready to buy instantly. Very few people. And in fact, sometimes those people who say yes immediately, they back out right away too. I
Right.
mean, so you're actually people who want to think about it and they want to consider it are often much better clients in the long run. And they have a lot more stickiness, and they become much more loyal. So you really are you're recognizing that many people aren't ready to make an instant decision. I mean, it's one thing if you walk into an Apple store with the intent to buy an iPhone, you're probably going to walk out with one.
Right. Right.
But it's very different when you're meeting somebody and you're talking about their products and services that you're going to be ready to move forward immediately. You're
Timing's
going to need
everything.
to think about it.
Timing's everything, right?
Yeah, and it
I
is.
mean, and the fortune is in the follow-up. We've all heard that. So, okay, we talked about how so many people fall short of following up, which is really, I think, an Achilles heel. That's a lot of businesses. That's the part that it's worthy of focusing on. So, what is your favorite strategy to turn follow-up into a relationship building advantage instead of a task, a dreaded task?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, with follow-up, schedule it into your calendar. You've got
Mhm.
to schedule it into your calendar. B, you have to lead with value. And for goodness sakes, do not do this. Oh, hi, Cyndi. This is Lynn. Oh, and I'm calling to follow up and see if you're finally ready to start the Strategic Sales Weekly program. Oh, well, I'll just send you an email. This is Lynn Whitbeck, 455. For God's sakes, don't do that. Okay. I mean, for goodness sakes. I mean, first of all, it's just god awful horrible. You're obviously following up, but instead you would lead with value. You would lead with something that matters to them. You know, Cyndi, I am just so super excited about the results that we're seeing from this new program because the accountability feature, because even though sales is not a numbers game, if you're not doing your follow-up, if you're not doing your sales calls, you're not making the sales. Listen, I'm going to put these results in a quick document. It's going to be in your email inbox, and it's going to be waiting for you in the next 5 minutes. Oh, by the way, this is Lynn Whitbeck, a strategic sales queen. You know my digits, 206-498-5122, and my email, lynnw@strategicsalesqueen.com. So now what I did is I led with value. Why does it matter to you? What's in it for you? How are you going to get it? And then I slow the cadence down. And for goodness sakes, here, pick up your phone and call people. Let them
Right.
hear our human voice. Plan to get voicemail, leave the voicemail and hit send. And remember, if you've worked on your voice of your client, you know what matters to them. You know what means what are the things that they're looking for. And then you lead with those different things. And you send them to something that's going to be, maybe it's a current blog post, maybe it was a podcast that you were on. It can be all kinds of different things. And you send them to assets you already have and you map this. So now you made a phone call, right? And the next step is you sent the email. It was already ready because you've already mapped this. You know, when you've had conversations with clients and follow up, you know what things matter to them. Like they're concerned that they're not doing those touches, those personal touches to their clients, maybe remembering their birthdays or their anniversaries, and they want a solution that's easy but that is thoughtful, right? So I'm just using Cyndi's example right now. So now you can lead with that, and then you put it in the email, you've got your pieces, and you send the email. And now at that point you've done what I call a dynamic duo. You hit them twice and they still may not respond because, life got in the way, they're busy, they got sick, their power went out, whatever. So now you can turn it into a triumphant triangle where 3 days later, you can send a text message, you can send it as a voice message on their text. If they're active on socials and that's something that you've got going with them right now, you can DM them. If you're using like a LinkedIn app, leave it as a voice message. I want everyone to challenge this after this, if they're watching live or afterwards. I want you to go to your LinkedIn app on your phone. I want you to open your messages, and I challenge you to find a voice message from anyone. You will stand out, and it's a human voice leaving a human message for them, and people will listen to it. And so
Keep it
then you
short.
do the exact same message that you left day one.
Right.
And now that's the triangle. And so that's one really great method of follow up, but you don't want to always do the same thing. You're going to want to send that personal note card. You might send them a handwritten letter, snail mail. Here's the thing. People don't get handwritten stuff anymore. They just
Yeah.
don't.
Snail mail really sets people apart.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so one of the things that I found is that we have this little thing called have you heard of the drunk monkey? Has that
I have
ever
not heard of the drunk
The
monkey.
drunk monkey is that little monkey that sits on your shoulder and will talk you out of things, right? It's that little voice that says, "Oh, I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be forward. I don't want to think that I'm desperate," right? And so what I've discovered, and I'd love to hear how you would respond to this, but what I discovered in my, sales journey is if I can reframe that instead of pest, as I mentioned earlier, I reframe it to my job is to educate. So put it in a positive light. I want to share my quick story because I think it's just so much, it's always encouraged me and I like to share with others as well. Years ago, when I was just starting to doing network marketing and just starting to get into the, world of business and learning about Chamber of Commerce and going to eWomen and even when I was creating exceptional connections many years ago, I remember needing to follow up with people. And having that struggle with that drunk monkey who is always wanting to say, that I was being a pest and I was having to overcome that. And then coming to the conclusion that no, I'm being my word. I told them I'd call, so I'm going to call. And if they tell me don't call anymore, I won't call anymore. But it's a matter of integrity. And so that's what was driving me. And so there was a gentleman that I met at a networking meeting. He happened to know my husband. We put that together so we had that personal connection. I left him voicemails. I sent him emails at different times, not all at once. I spaced it out. Calling him periodically, saying, "Hey, Michael, thinking of you. Love to be able to get together and answer your questions, and love to get to know you better." And by the way, Curtis said hello, and I learned more about you through my husband. Just keeping the conversation alive, even though it was a one-sided conversation for a long time, right? So finally, we set a date. I went to his office. I gave the presentation. He asked me to come back to give it to his sales manager. So I came back and gave it to his sales manager. I think we had to reschedule it. It just went on and on and on and on. When it came months later, and maybe even a year later, when he finally purchased a package from me, and we had by that time gotten to know each other pretty well, right? I'll never forget this. He said, "Cyndi, I want you to know that I've met a lot of people over the years in sales. I've been in sales, but I've never met anybody who's navigated the world of keeping in touch and follow up as well as you have." And that taught me a really big lesson, not to listen to that little drunk monkey that's going to say you're a pest. Because in reframing it, in putting it in a light of I'm my job, I'm educating, I'm being my word and being a person of integrity, in the end, I learned that he didn't see me as a pest the way I went about following up with him. And I earned his business. I earned his trust.
Yeah.
And he ended up giving me more referrals than anybody else. And I built a whole nother part of my business from his referrals. So I learned
Yeah.
a lot of lessons from that. Um, so any insights that spurred from you in terms of, not
Oh,
listening
yeah.
to that voice?
No, I mean, I hadn't heard that phrase before, so that's a new one for me. But one of the things that it really struck a chord with me is that that's where you go back to that value vault. If you're delivering value and things that matter to them, just because they're ghosting you, it is not about you. Stop projecting. This they're busy. Just, accept that. And until they tell you no, and don't call me again,
Right.
right? And I had the same experience closing a multi-million-dollar deal. I'd had a great conversation, he really interested, and dead silence. I did all my follow-up activities. I kept going through my follow-up cadence, and I have a 13-step follow-up cadence that I would use in B2B, and I'm mixing up different ways that I do my follow-up, different things that I would do. And I'd gotten to step number 12, which I considered my Hail Mary. And I sent a meeting invitation for lunch. And this would mean I'd have to fly in to see him. And he accepted. And so then I called to confirm that I'd be coming. I called again to confirm that I was coming, right? Never heard a peep from him. Emailed him with my schedule. And I literally show up at the building at their corporate headquarters going like, well, I wonder if he's going to show up. And down the stairs he trotted. And we went out. We actually had a 3-hour lunch. And he told me every time I'd go to follow up with you, I'd get interrupted and there'd be some new crisis. And I was so glad you sent me this meeting invitation. I have to eat and I want to get this done. I want to move forward with this. And we did. It took months longer, of course, but I did close a multi-million-dollar deal because kept following up for 9 months. It was not about me. And, that was the thing. And yeah, it took a lot longer. B2B sales always take a lot longer, right? But that's the beautiful thing. If you're delivering a product that's going to make a real difference and they've indicated interest, you know that it's going to help and serve them, then, it's a place of integrity to continue to deliver value when you're following up so that you can move the conversation forward. Because even though you don't know it, you are moving the conversation forward because they're hearing you, they're recognizing that you've taken this step, you're building your credibility about what it's going to be like to work with you, that you're going to be there, that you're going to take care of them. You're building your authority about how you manage things. And that is a direct reflection of what it's going to be like to work with you. And
Absolutely.
so, and by doing that, then that is how you then close the sale.
Mm. That's a great way to segue into our Q&A. So thank you, Lynn. So feel free to unmute if you have any questions. This is a great opportunity to get your questions answered by the strategic sales queen.
Lynn, I do have one question that I have been dying to ask someone. And that is, I have a very, very large product base available to me, and I have kind of nailed it down to health and beauty. But when you have that large of a client base and it's beneficial to a lot of people, how do you nail your ideal client? How do you bring that down to just the most uh, valuable person that you can help?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing is like, what are the products that you're the most passionate about that speak to you personally? I mean, that's a great place to start with because that's going to be where it lights you up when you're talking about them. It could be another place to look at is where are you seeing the biggest gap that's out in the marketplace that you uniquely fill? And that's a place of education, as Cyndi pointed out, but really filling that desperate need that those products aren't out there. And so it's I would definitely lead with what speaks to you because then that it's just a natural reflection of how you can be enthusiastic and passionate about it. But when you're also working with and talking with people, you can ask them questions that would align with moving them into additional product lines. And so, just hey, tell me what's going on and how you would handle this type of situation, or what's your thoughts on this maybe it's a story in the news that's going on, and how would you cope with, a toilet paper crisis. I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry. That is, I know you don't sell toilet paper, but you know what I mean. Remember still the Costco days when there was no toilet paper. Everybody cleaned it out, but whatever it happens to be. So that would be another thing because you can bring that into the conversation. So you could look for some different ways that you can bring in pieces into the conversation to ask questions about that. And if this would be, well, we have a product that could actually might help you solve that problem. Would you like to hear about it? It's an invitation. Would you like to know more about it? And so that's a great way to ask them because now they're already an existing client and they are going to have a lot of other different needs, but you come in with that point of, where you really get excited about it.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Kathy.
Yes, thank
Oh
you.
my gosh. So I don't, so much information, so overwhelming in many ways, but in such a good way, really. I don't really have a specific question. Gail, that was a great question, by the way. Um, but the drunk monkey thing, I think my drunk monkey is an ape. He's huge. So just the tips on how to change your mindset, to flip it from education and it's your integrity. And when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And to not take it personally and to know that even if they're not responding, you're still moving that forward. What a great way to look at that. So What, yeah, that's perfect for me. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, Lynn, tell us more, tell our listeners more about how they can follow up with you if they're interested in learning more and being able to take advantage of your services.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I preach in the funnel. So I have a great get more clients checklist, and this is going to showcase where you might have some gaps in your sales system, where you might be really knocking it out of the park, but where there's some areas that could have refinement, some things that you should be paying attention to or working more on, and it's going to give you the insights so that you can actually apply it immediately. It's super easy so that you can actually move your sales forward within about 10 minutes. And you got okay, this is one thing. I'm going to start paying more attention to this and doing this, and it's going to help your sales. And you can get that at strategicsalesqueen.com/checklist. And it's going to really help you out to identify, what's the first thing that maybe you should be working on in your sales.
Okay, I'll be sure to add that to the description checklist on there. Okay, awesome. And all right, so Lynn, bring us home here. So you talked about um, being able to, I'm sorry, I lost my, okay. So leave our listeners with one powerful truth about sales that they can immediately increase their impact.
Sales is not a numbers game, period. It's about doing the things, that move the conversation forward and you build the relationship. And the number one thing you can all do is who have you not followed up on? Whether it's a week, a month, a couple months, don't apologize. They've been busy. They've been living their life, running their work. Just pick up the phone and move the conversation forward.
That's beautiful. Thank you for tying a bow around our conversation. It was so much fun. We learned so much, so many great reminders, and thank you for being so passionate about sales. And it's again, it's not about the numbers game. You're right. A lot of people focus on that. How many no's can you get, right?
Yeah.
It's really how many relationships are you building and how much trust are you building. So I love that. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I just want to remind you to make every connection an exceptional connection. All right, signing off for today. Bye bye.